Guys, Rich here from the RCNetwork.com, and this is my full in-depth build review of the brand new Tekno ET48 2.0. This, of course, is Tekno's newest 1/8 scale 4-wheel drive electric competition Truggy. This video will show the progress of building the kit, things I noticed along the way, and things that made this one of the best new e-Truggies on the market. Now, if you haven't already, check out my unboxing of this kit, where you'll see exactly everything that comes inside the kit and how it's packaged from Tekno. Before we start, I'd like to ask you a question. How should I build up this Truggy? As a racer or as a basher? Ever since the MT410 came out nearly 5 years ago, bashers were introduced to the Tekno brand, and ever since, the ET48 lineup has been one of the most popular platforms for bashing. So what would you do? Race or bash? Now for the build review. In this video, we'll be covering tools needed to assemble your ET48 2.0, supplement items needed to assemble your new kit, how the kit assembles, including both positives and negatives, owner's manual notes, parts left over, and finally my overall thoughts on the build. Basic tools needed for the build is a concise list of a 1.5, 2.0, and 2.5mm hex drivers, 5.0, 5.5, and 7.0mm nut drivers, and a 4 and 5mm turnbuckle wrench. Supplement tools that help the build include needle nose pliers, shock shaft pliers, a 17mm wheel wrench, Lexan scissors, a body reamer, and a good set of calipers. Lubricants included in the kit are black grease, threadlock, 10,000 and 20,000 diff oil, 600 CST and 700 CST shock oil, and I added chapstick for building my turnbuckles and Protex Premier Blue O-ring grease for the shock cartridge rings. As with all Tekno vehicles, bags A and B start off by building the differentials. All use very similar parts from front to center to rear, and top-of-the-line quality like hardened steel bevel gears and all steel internals. The bevel and pinion is a 40-tooth to 9-tooth ratio, so you'll have tons of torque on this gigantic RC. Supplied with the kit are 20,000 and 10,000 weight diff oil, with 20 going in the front and center and 10 going in the rear. The diffs assemble easily and are so smooth, one of the best diffs on the 8-scale market. I like to mark my diff cups with a silver Sharpie just to remind me the weight that's inside the diffs. Bag C starts you on assembling the front gearbox, including the 5mm wide beautiful shock tower. 7075 machined aluminum on this one. Currently, the ET48 2.0 has newly designed gearboxes included in a supplement bag, so make sure and grab those parts. The manual calls for adding shims to the bevel side of the diff, but only if needed. I was able to fit one shim, so I ran with it. I love the design of the Tekno gearboxes with the trap door on the bottom. It keeps everything sealed up nice. Assembled, these are the smoothest gearboxes I've ever assembled. No friction and very smooth. The famous D-bag is similar to the C, but just for the rear. It includes the wing mount and the rear shock tower once again, 7075 machined aluminum and 4mm thick. The same call for shimming as needed for the diffs, and in this case, I could not even get one in, so my rear gearbox is shimless. The body mount has this unique clamp-on design to the shock towers, and most unique on the rear tower is 3 mounting positions for the wing tower. You can now have 0, 7mm, or 12mm heights on the same wing tower. Nice. The rear includes a rear center universal drive shaft versus the dog bone and the 48.3. You can even consider making an extreme short wheelbase Truggy if you wanted. Bag E starts with the rear A-arms, C and D blocks, and sway bars. This bag also gets you all of the pills for the front and rear. Stock pills are all set to 0 for the build. Both C and D blocks are machined aluminum, which is a nice upgrade. As with any Tekno, the arms are solid. If you break a Tekno arm, you're definitely doing it wrong. A big upgrade on the 2.0 vehicles is the bearing assisted sway bars. They're very simple and so smooth. No more complicated set screws everywhere. The arms' inner hinge pins use a metal insert, so they're very smooth and no arm reaming is necessary with these. They fit perfect and needed no additional washers or shims. All assembled, it's looking like a rear end. Bag F included the rest of the rear to make it all functional. Rear hubs, CVD drive shafts, 5mm turnbuckles, and tons of pills for the fully adjustable geometry. Much of the quality here was in the aluminum hexes and hardened steel drive shafts and stub axles. The rear hubs assembled easily, and there was no play with the gigantic bearings. New for the 2.0s are pills for the hub carriers to adjust roll center. They're flippable for multiple adjustments. Also in the outer section of the arms are even more pills to adjust the toe, both active and static. I set everything to stock on these. The rear hubs also have a failsafe for the outer fully captured hinge pin, 2 set screws to be a safety blanket, as well as adjustable wheelbase with the included spacers. Rear clip is basically done and looking good. Bag G has the all-new A-arms, sway bars, and A and B blocks, keeping with the same theme as the rear with the machined aluminum suspension holders. Straight from the ET48 2.0, the arms of the Truggy also have built-in caster, or in other words, the arms have a slight twist to them. This will make the front end much smoother and much more durable, as there'll be less caster in the blocks and less stress on the CVDs. Front section is done, now it's time for the cool stuff. Bag H has a ton of quality and engineering with the caster blocks, hubs, CVD drive shafts, and turnbuckles for the front. First, the 15-degree caster blocks are beautiful and massive, all machined aluminum, very similar to the EB. You also get hardened steel stub axles and aluminum 17mm hexes, slightly wider on the front versus the rear. Building the Tekno turnbuckles is spread over 3 bags, which is nice, and they assemble great. I used a bit of chapstick as recommended in the manual. First seen on the ET48.4, we are seeing an even improved bearing-assisted steering on the caster blocks. Huge pins ride in, and everything is very smooth with zero binding. The front end has many fail-safes, including 8 set screws that hold the pins for the outer pins and pins for the steering. Bag I builds the steering rack, Ackerman bar, and servo saver. You do get an optional servo saver delete post, but I opted for the saver, nearly locked out as the manual suggests. Lots of quality with the saver tube, adjuster, and Ackerman being aluminum. An easy way to tighten the nut is to use your 17mm wheel wrench, and I added some Loctite as recommended in the manual. Steering rack and turnbuckles assembled, now it's time to get things mounted up on the chassis. The new 4mm thick 7075 aluminum hard anodized chassis is a work of art. Lots of milling to stiffen it as well as save some weight. Let's get mounting. Bag J includes the steering post, top plate, front brace, along with tons of M4 countersunk screws to mount the front clip. I loosely mounted the rack and post to the top plate, as you do have to key the posts into the chassis plate. The rack is very smooth though. You do need to remove the front bumper, as the new chassis keys into the A block and the front bumper somewhat locks into it. Bag K includes all of the center section, including the motor mount, center diff upright, and top plate, center drive shaft, center and rear braces. The machined aluminum motor mount is my absolute favorite in the industry. No one else comes close. The front center bolts in nicely and everything fits perfect. The entire front section spins so freely, it's amazing. Now for the most puzzling piece in the new 2.0 Tekno kits, the puzzle piece. You'll find out once the step is complete, you're left with this little tiny piece. It's actually a spacer that fits between the center diff top plate and the motor mount if you choose not to run that center brace. I think this was the most asked question in the ET48 2.0 kit. Everything mounted up now, this is looking like a Truggy. I always build shocks last, so bag L and M will have to wait till later. Bag N gets you everything to mount your electronics and complete the center of the Truggy. Servo and ESC tray, radio box, battery tray and strap, and the side guards. You also get the machined aluminum motor plate that has mounting available for 42mm and 36mm motors. Pretty much all from the EB, the new wider chassis leaves much more room for electronics. The battery strap is a super wide one, but also has mounts for a vertical strap as an option. The servo ESC tray mounts up nice with 6 screws securing it. The radio box is a bit bigger than the previous gen, but does have that gaping hole for the wires. Come on Tekno, we need a rubber gasket or something for that. The most minimal bag, Bag O, has the steering link and the steering horns, a variety of 3 plastic starter horns. I'll quickly add on an aluminum one here soon. Bag P includes the rear wing buttons, aluminum serrated wheel nuts, and body clips. A nice touch was aluminum inserts for the wing buttons, and you do get the screws to mount the snout of the body, or I mean headlights. Pretty much just 2 screws that screw directly into the shock tower. I did have to trim the headlight piece and the main body. It would have been nice if these were pre-trimmed from the factory, as it is tough to make those elongated holes in the rear of the body. The body does mount on nice, and I like how it's a more protected body over a traditional Truggy. But wait till my reveal video where you'll see how good this body can look. Alright, back to bags L and M, the shocks. Tekno does have some of the best shocks in the industry, and unlike the EB48 2.0, these do have traditional front and rear shocks. If you remember, the EB had the same size shocks on all 4 points, with just a spacer as the difference. I'm a bit OCD when laying out shock parts, so I like to have somewhat of an assembly line. Having the right tools makes it easy, so specifically the Tekno shock shaft pliers and 17mm wheel wrench, along with some Protect Blue O-ring grease, round out the assembly. Lots of quality, including aluminum threaded bodies, caps, adjusters, bottom caps, round out the lineup. The kit comes with 700 CST for the fronts and 600 CST oil for the rears. The machine Delrin pistons do mount using a 5mm lock nut, the only time a 5mm nut driver is needed on the build. One big bummer is, just like the EB, the O-ring is a micron too thick on the shock collars, so prepare to have some extremely sore hands after trying to screw on the spring adjuster. My thumbs are still hurting as I film this. The shocks use a bladder cap option, which does make the build go a bit quicker, and I found the bleed to be easy, and the shocks are some of the smoothest I've seen from Tekno. Proper length springs and capture spring perches round out the shocks. Shocks mount up using a 5.5mm nut driver on all points for ease of maintenance, along with right hand and left-handed thread studs for yet another failsafe. The owner's manual is laid out well, with lots of great illustrations, one-to-one dimensions of hardware, and even written content to explain some of the more crucial steps like shocks and differentials. I didn't find any mistakes in the manual, as Tekno is the industry leader in manual writing. Here's a few things I noted in my manual that may help with your build. The kit does come with diff shims, although the manual states to only use them if needed. I was able to fit one in the rear diff, but nothing in the front. The hub and arm inserts are a bit confusing on first look. Be sure to read this section and get all of the orientations down before inserting, as the hub inserts can be flipped and the arm inserts have a left and right side denoted by the notches. Tekno is quite unique, as they're the only manufacturer that recommends chapstick to build the turnbuckles. I've been using chapstick for years now. As I noted on the build section, you will have to remove the front bumper that was installed in a previous step to allow the chassis to key into the A-block. Step J3 shows this more thoroughly. I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. More manufacturers need to have written shock filling and bleeding instructions like Tekno. You cannot use multi-language illustrations for this. Thanks, Tekno. On step N6, you get a small chart for pinion selection with a wide variety of motors, tracks, and straight lengths. The only upgrade needed in any Tekno is an aluminum servo horn. It would be awesome if a 25-tooth aluminum horn was just included in the kit, although you do get a starter plastic horn in 3 varieties. Finally, Tekno does a great job of just explaining setup, both with all the written content in the rear of the manual and suggested and blank setup sheets towards the end. Parts left over from the build include a healthy amount of alternative pills for all the suspension holders, arms, and hubs, 23 and 24 tooth plastic horns, motor bolts, transponder screws, the famous puzzle piece, a few shims, and the servo saver delete post. Overall, the ET48 2.0 is a great build. It is well laid out with a great manual along with top quality parts that went into the kit. Part fitment was top notch, and the amount of upgrades included in the kit is staggering. Besides the aluminum servo horn, nothing should be needed as an upgrade. I had no missing parts or sections that had leftover parts with no direction, well, except for the puzzle piece. But now, I pass the question off to you. Racer or basher? How should I build it up? Please leave your comments down in the comment section. With that, I cannot wait to drop in some electronics, paint up the body, bolt on some wheels and tires, so stay tuned for my build review here soon, as well as a first run video right after. As always, if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified anytime I upload a video. Finally, my name is Rich. Thanks for watching.